Hello everyone! Welcome back to this game. When we last left off, we went through the first day of Super Mario Bros. World 1 and 2 were in day, and World 3 was at night, and now it's day again, therefore it's the second day. Now, in all this time, Bowser has of course heard of Mario gallivanting about, foiling his plans, and so Bowser has sent a dangerous foe after us. And that would be this guy, Lakitu, or Lakitu, Jugum? Whatever, I killed him. The problem is, he'll come back, repeatedly. You cannot permanently kill Lakitu, so that's an issue. Anyway, before the break, I was about to tell a little bit of story about the firehouses. Did I miss another coin? Once again, there's supposed to be a 1-up here, but I guess I did not collect enough coins from a couple levels ago, because that is required for triggering the 1-up. Kind of interesting how that works. Just to double check, I am having the mic on, yes, okay. I absolutely do not want to wind up proceeding and having my mic turned off. That would be unfortunate. So, firehouses, aka the castles at the end of each world. One of my cousins had Super Mario Bros., and it was the 3-pack of Super Mario Bros. It had, well, let's see here, Super Mario Bros., Duck Hunt, and World Class Track Meet. Now, when I went over to my cousin's house to play NES, for whatever reason, anytime they were in one of the firehouses, I would act like I was scared of the place and try to hide under the cover. I mean, I've already played through those levels on my own, so I have no reason to be afraid of them. It was just a kid thing to do, I guess. That was kind of weird to me, but whatever. By the way, by this point, some of you may have already gone back to my original Let's Play and watched my original Let's Play of this game. And just to see, you know, how sucky it really is. And you probably have learned that, yes, it is an entirely sucky playthrough. Something that bears mentioning, I kind of forgot to mention this earlier, is I sort of had a stand-in when I was recording that. I had footage of me in real life. Quote-unquote me. In actuality, it was somebody I had standing in for me, because, in actuality, for those of you who are not aware, I am a raccoon dragon, as far as you know. And as you can imagine, a raccoon dragon appearing on camera would wind up creating a media circus, we'll say, and I kind of wanted to avoid that. By the way, there was a vine over there that I wound up skipping. I skipped it on purpose because we're not going up that vine. That vine leads to a warp zone which will skip the rest of World 4, possibly going all the way to World 8, and I would rather not do that. I forgot to check if there was a power-up in here. I always feel like there is, but maybe not. Maybe it's just a coin block. Well, I'm about to find out. Hopefully. Getting in here when you're big is kind of tricky. You have to duck in order to get in there, because if you're standing straight up, you'll just slide right past the entrance. No, there's no power up in there. It's just a coin block. Beer Force is asking when I would possibly use face rig. Not unless I were able to get a face rig going that would represent me properly. I mean, you gotta have my raccoon face, that part's easy. The hard part is the horn on my muzzle, and... no, it's just that. Also my red hair, but I don't think that would be terribly difficult. And that was a failed jump. After my original playthrough of this game, my original Let's Play, I'm kind of used to those failed jumps. By the way, I saw some pixels over there on the right representing some scenery that was just barely off screen, and that reminds me, in certain instances, it's actually possible to jump over the flagpole. And if you manage to do that and keep on going, you will find infinity. Basically until time runs out. There's nothing over there. Well, sort of. There is like a garbled mess of pixels if you go far enough, because honestly, I'm not sure why. Maybe there's like... the code can't handle it or something? Like your coordinates go beyond the boundaries of what the NES is capable of? That is my assumption. Kind of interesting. I wonder if I should try that. Hold on a sec. I'm going to bust this so that I can hopefully get this coin. And sure enough, I can... It seemed like I was bumping my head on the platform that is no longer there. Speaking of warp zones, by the way, a lot of people wind up taking that warp zone I was talking about, and they wind up skipping this level as a result, which is a shame because it's an interesting level with all the platforms that are mushroom platforms like that. It's the only level in the game that's like that. I wonder how many people are aware of that being the case. I will admit, when I was a kid, I often went through the warps and skipped through the game myself. Nowadays, I feel like I'm cheating myself by doing that, and so I actually take the route I'm supposed to. Speaking of which, I'm taking the route I'm supposed to. This is a bit of a confusing level right here. It's a maze. You have to take the correct path, or else it loops. In this situation, I have to go down here so it doesn't loop. There's a couple of levels like this, actually. Thankfully, it loops before this wall, so you don't actually wind up trapped by the wall. Finally got a fire flower, and it's a good thing too, because I cannot imagine getting through this without one. There's unfortunately no indication of which path is the correct path on the NES version of this game, but on the Super Mario All-Stars remake and also the Game Boy Color port, there's a sound effect that plays whenever you take the correct or wrong path, so that's nice. Will you give a 1-up? I don't think you will. Nope. No 1-up from you. Now, is there anything... oh, wait a sec. This was a 1-up opportunity. Maybe. Not sure, actually. That's going to be a star. I'm just going to go ahead and let it go away, because no, in actuality, it's right past this point where the 1-up opportunity comes into play, and I don't want to use a star because that'll take that opportunity away. Sometimes it gets a 1-up out of that and sometimes it doesn't. It's like sometimes one extra enemy spawns and sometimes it doesn't. Not sure what's up with that. Go ahead and shoot again, please. Or am I just close enough that you're not willing to shoot? Because they don't shoot point blank. I guess they're just not going to shoot. So I'm going to go into this pipe and pop out of the one right there. And it's this room again. There are a variety of these bonus rooms, but there's only so many of them. Of course, just because I've already been in this room once before doesn't mean I'm not going to go after all the coins and stuff, because coins! Who doesn't like grabbing coins? It's too bad they don't really have much purpose outside of 1-ups, but then again, in Super Mario Bros. 1, those 1-ups are actually pretty handy to have, because while not super duper hard, back in the day, I was needing, oh, Crown 0. I'll get back to you that. Back in the day, I definitely needed the lives. So, I got Crown 0 lives now. That basically means 10 lives. The game is not programmed to actually display the number 10. That's kind of interesting. If you go beyond 20 lives, then the icons become very interesting. Speaking of interesting, this is interesting. A Hammer Brother sitting in the worst possible spot. Even with the Fire Flower, I'm not confident that I'll be able to get past him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait up here, and after a certain amount of time, he's going to come charging at me. Which is actually kind of a little freaky, given how dangerous these guys are. It's even freakier in the Lost levels. For those of you not aware, there was a Super Mario Bros. That only released in Japan. It was a direct sequel to this game, used similar graphics, a lot of the same music, and also assumed that you played this game because it basically is like starting the difficulty from the last level of this game with the first level of the sequel. And at one point, I skipped that, by the way, because it'll come into play later. At one point, the Hammer Brothers no longer wait for you. They are always charging after you. That is definitely freaky and makes them a whole lot harder. That said, I actually have the original Super Mario Bros. 2 Japan version on Virtual Console on Wii, and I have beaten it. It wasn't very easy, got a lot of game overs, especially in the last world. Finally managed to beat the game with being on my last life. It is definitely a hard one. If you gotta play it, I recommend the SNES version. Not only because of it's slightly easier on the NES version, or Super Nintendo version. The All-Stars version is what I'm trying to say. But also, another thing is you can save your progress level by level, which is good because in the original version, you can only continue from the start of a world, not the level that you died at. And there's also the situation with... Hold on a sec. Something just occurred to me and I need to point it out. So, Super Mario Bros. 1 rehashes a few levels along the way, and this is the first rehash. This was also a level in World 1. I guess I didn't have enough memory for a complete selection of 32 levels. But anyway, Super Mario The Lost Levels, as it has become to be known, has 13 worlds, whereas this game only has 8 worlds. Now, the 9th world and beyond in the Super Nintendo, pretty easy to get to, for the most part. World 9 is like this fancy pants world, where you wind up... hold on a sec. That sucked. Where you can only reach World 9 in that game if you go through the entire game without using a warp. I think you also have to go without getting a game over, but I'm not sure on that. Here's the thing about the original version of the game, though. While you can go ahead and just do World 9, the worlds after World 9 are only unlocked in the Lost Levels, the original Lost Levels, if you beat the game 8 times. That's dumb. This is a situation I am not fond of, so excuse me while I do a little bit of sneakiness. So that's another reason why I would recommend the All-Stars version of the Lost Levels. There's also, by the way, a port of Super Mario Bros. On the Game Boy Color. Oh, I forgot you turned around. Now, that version is kind of interesting, because it is a feature-packed version of this game. First off, there's the drawback, though. The Game Boy has a lower screen resolution than the NES, but it was a pixel-perfect port. Therefore, there's a little bit of screen crunching going on, so where I am right now on the Game Boy Color version, you might not see the ground down below from where I'm standing. That's really not an issue. They kind of had a little bit of camera motion going on so that if there's a platform off camera down below, it would show you. Still, if you don't like screen crunch, that is a situation you would want to keep in mind. That said, it definitely has some interesting features. First off, there's this versus sort of mode, where there's these 8 levels that you try to race through, either multiplayer or against a boo. And your goal, of course, is to get to the flagpole the fastest. And it was interesting because some of those special levels had a gimmick not in the original games, where platforms would appear and disappear based on a timer. That was definitely interesting. Another thing it had was a calendar, you know, if you like calendars. There was also a fortune cookie thing that was just random fortunes. Those 2 features were not important. But a feature that was pretty dang interesting was a challenge mode, where you could play through any of Super Mario Bros. Levels, trying to rack up as many points as you can. And they would add special items to get, like red coins and a hidden Yoshi egg that would be invisible. I think the Yoshi egg in this level was right to the side of this, inside an invisible block. So that was pretty interesting. The game also has an unlockable version of the Lost Levels. Which pipe was I supposed to go in? I think I missed the pipe. I missed the pipe. That's a bummer. But there was... You could unlock the Lost Levels in Super Mario Bros. Deluxe on the Game Boy. That was pretty cool. For the most part. It was kind of watered down a little. Made easier. In one way it was made easier. The Lost Levels actually has a few levels where there's wind going on. And as you can expect, wind makes things kind of difficult. But the biggest disappointment of that version of the Lost Levels is it doesn't have the levels beyond World 8 at all. The game ends at World 8, so that's kind of dumb. Yes, Beer Force. The lost levels on Super Mario Bros. Deluxe was called... Oh, hold on a sec. I was about to try to do the one-up trick. But yeah, it was called Super Mario Bros. For Super Players on Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. It's for Super Players, alright. It's just not super enough. Okay, this level kinda is weird. Wonder why this world is in grayscale. Most of the world is in grayscale. The clouds seem to have red lips for some reason. Is this like an undead world? An undead level? Are the clouds vampires? That reminds me. How about that introduction to the game? The background story. Where the Koopas have magical powers that turned all the mushroom people into blocks and stuff. What does that mean for the bricks that we sometimes break? Does that mean the bricks we break are mushroom people? Are we killing toads? Then again, maybe we're not necessarily killing them because you can't exactly kill bricks. But that does bring up another question of what happens once we rescue Princess Toadstool and she breaks the spell that everybody's been transformed. Will the people who have been broken apart not come back to life? Will they come back to life whole? Or, shudder, shudder, will they come back to life in pieces? Honestly, I'm not really sure what would be worse. Being stuck in as eternity as a pile of rubble, or becoming flesh again, but you're in pieces and you die anyway. By the way, this is another rehashed level from earlier in the game, made a little bit harder. You might have noticed in World 1 and 2 that some of these blocks... Darn. Some of these blocks had no fire bars on them. That's because they were being saved for this level. Alright, Bowser's about to get a little bit harder now that we're in World 6. He can throw hammers. But he doesn't shoot fireballs. Ah, darn it. I would have liked to try that trick that I was mentioning earlier, where you can die and win at the same time. Before doing this stream, I actually did a practice run where I made it to all the way to the end of the game, and I managed to perform that trick on the final Bowser. So, Princess Toadstool was congratulating a dead Mario. Mario was not on screen. That was kind of interesting. Why is she called Toadstool in these early games anyway? In Japan, her name has always been Peach. Ah, I had too much momentum. But for whatever reason, up until Super Mario 64, her English name has been Toadstool. I mean, I suppose it makes sense given that she's the ruler of the Mushroom People. Well, acting ruler of the Mushroom People. No idea where the king and queen are. I mean, if she's a princess, there has to be a king and queen, right? Maybe there's an answer on somewhere on the interwebs that explain the name change. Because what was wrong with Peach? Okay, another opportunity to try this glitch. No. It has to be like pixel perfect to die and win at the same time. Well, anyway, that is the end of the second day of Mario's journey to rescue Princess Toadstool. It is daytime once again in World 7, and that means we are going to go ahead and take another episode break. So, we will be right back, and when we come back, we'll go through World 7 and World 8 and beat the game for the first time. Eventually, we're also going to play through the hard difficulty, but that comes later.